All right, let's get right into it. Welcome to this explainer where we're going to effortlessly master the Bombardier Q400 APU limitations. We're pulling these directly from Supplement 6 of the Aircraft Flight Manual, the AFM. Now, look, if you've ever stared at a dense technical manual and wondered how on earth you're going to keep all those numbers and strict rules straight in your head, you are exactly in the right place. Today, we aren't just dryly reading facts off a page. We're actually going to use some really simple, clever memory tricks to permanently lock this crucial information into your brain. So here is our game plan for this strictly sequential pre-flight check. We're breaking these strictly sequential rules into 4 incredibly easy-to-digest chunks. Section 1 is general operational limitations. Section 2 covers lower temperature limits. Section 3 is upper temperature and louvers. And finally, Section 4 wraps up with oil and starter limits. Okay, jumping right into chunk 1, Section 1, general operational limitations. Basically, this covers the absolute operational boundaries for when that auxiliary power unit absolutely must remain off. Now, following the manual strictly in order, we have 4 foundational safety protocols for the aircraft while it's sitting on the tarmac. Rule 1, the APU is approved for ground operations only. Pretty straightforward, right? Which naturally leads right into Rule 2, it must be shut down prior to takeoff. Rule 3 says the APU must not be operated unattended when you have passengers on board. And Rule 4, do not operate it during gravity refueling. Now, reading these in a quiet room is one thing, but we're calling them on a chaotic, loud flight line, that's a whole different story. So, to effortlessly recall these 4 bands in exact order, just use the acronym GTUG. Think of the phrase, ground tugs usually go. It's that simple. G stands for ground operations only. T reminds you to shut down prior to takeoff. U means no unattended operation with passengers. And that last G, no gravity refueling. Ground tugs usually go. Boom, you've just memorized the first 4 limitations of the Q400 APU. Moving right down the manual's sequence, let's tackle Section 2, lower temperature limits. This is where we get into the extreme cold weather restrictions. The crucial point here is the absolute lower ambient temperature limit for the APU. The magic number is minus 54 degrees Celsius. Literally, at the outside air drops below minus 54, you've hit the hard bottom limit. The APU stays off. But what if it's not quite that cold, but still freezing? Well, that brings us to what we like to call the rule of 35. The manual is incredibly specific here. If the APU sits shut down in outside air temperatures below minus 35 degrees Celsius for greater than 1 hour, you can't just casually fire it up. Actually, a mandatory preheat is required prior to starting, and it has to be done strictly in accordance with applicable maintenance procedures. Just remember the formula, minus 35 degrees for 60 minutes means a mandatory preheat. All right, climbing way up the temperature ladder now, we reach Section 3, upper temperature and louvers. These are your warm weather rules. Now, Rule 6 requires a quick mental comparison. You've got your standard upper limit, which is plus 30 degrees Celsius, or an International Standard Atmosphere, ISA, of plus 25 degrees Celsius, adhering to whichever one is lower. However, if specific modifications are incorporated, specifically MS 4-900136 or 137, your limit dramatically jumps up to plus 50 degrees Celsius or ISA plus 35 degrees Celsius. Same rule applies though, always take whichever value is lower. But wait, because Rule 7 throws a really important exception into the mix. If APU inlet louvers are installed, specifically modification MS 4-428900, everything changes. With those specific louvers installed, your operation is strictly limited to a maximum ambient temperature of plus 21 degrees Celsius. Keep that exact number locked in. If you see louvers, you have a hard ceiling of plus 21 degrees Celsius. No exceptions. And just like that, we arrive at Section 4, oil and starter limits. This covers the critical fluids and the cranking rolls. Under Rule 9, you absolutely must memorize the 4 specific approved oils that maintain the mechanical integrity of the Q400's APU. To make this relatable and stick in your head, just think 2 mils, a Castrol, and a Mobil. That gives you Mil L 7808 and Mil L 23699C. Those are your 2 military spec oils, alongside Castrol 98 UK and Mobiljet 2. If the bottle doesn't say one of those 4 exact names, it does not go in the APU, period. And honestly, right below that list is a hard and fast warning straight from the manual. Do not mix oils. It is literally capitalized in the source material for a very good reason. This matters immensely because adhering to this non-negotiable directive prevents severe mechanical issues from tearing up the inside of that APU. Stick strictly to the approved list and pick only one. Finally, Rule 10 dictates the starter cranking limits, and it outlines a mandatory cooling off period. It goes like this. If you fail a first start attempt, you can try again. But if that second attempt fails, you hit a hard stop. A minimum of 30 minutes off must elapse before you can make a third attempt. The really helpful trick to remember here is that this 30-minute block actually includes the time taken for any maintenance action you do following that second failed attempt. So the clock starts right away, and for half an hour, that starter gets a mandatory break. So let's take a breath and review. You've got ground tugs usually go for your operational limits. You know your extreme cold thresholds are -54 and the rule of 35. You completely understand the upper limits, that strict +21-degree restriction when louvers are installed, the unmixed approved oils, and that mandatory 30-minute cooling period after 2 failed starts. With these sequential rules and mnemonic chunks securely locked in your mind, the ultimate question remains. Are you prepared to step out onto the tarmac and apply these Bombardier Q400 APU limitations flawlessly? I genuinely think you are. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and stay curious.